Hi, welcome to Gold's Gardens and Healthy Tips. Today is a healthy tip day and I was going to make some of my muffins, so I thought I would make a little video of that. So I'm going to include the recipe in this video, and I'm making some of my healthy oat muffins. The reason I like to make these muffins, I've been making them for a long time and I've changed the recipe over the years. Started making these many years ago because I wanted a healthy muffin for the family that wasn't like a commercial bought muffin that just has so much sugar in it and so many artificial ingredients in it. Because muffins can be a really great like breakfast food, snack food, and so I had a basic recipe and I just kind of kept changing the recipe to meet the needs of the family and to add things that were flavorful, and also to make it, these muffins are dairy-free, gluten-free, and sugar-free. So they're just a very basic muffin, but a very flavorful muffin that is really healthy. So a good muffin for your kiddos, for your family, for breakfast, for snack time, however you want to use it. So I'm going to share my recipe, which I've just kind of concocted over the years, and we're just going to put some muffins together. So the reason I really like this is because there's like a base recipe formula that I use each time, and then I add other things to make it in different flavors. So today we're going to make some applesauce, ones with applesauce, ones with pumpkin, and ones with banana. But I use the same dry base, and then I add these other ingredients to make it flavorful in different ways. So we're going to start out with dry ingredients first, I think. So we'll get all of our dry ingredients put in first. So I use a gluten-free flour. Now, if you're not gluten-free and you want to use a regular flour, I'm sure it would work just wonderful. Sometimes I use an oat flour. I know some people like to use almond flour, so I've used all, and I feel like it will work with everything, but that's what I've got today. And then I use a oat bran. Now, for people who are like super gluten-free, you might not want to use this because I think that, you know, it's controversial. I'm just going to leave it up to you. But I use this oat bran, and unfortunately I thought I had another bag and I couldn't find it, so I'm going to use up the rest of this oat bran, and then we'll just pretend like I'm using as much as I use, and I'll substitute it for some more oatmeal. And then I'm using my oats, and I use Bob's Red Mill gluten-free oats, but you can use whatever you choose. And that's kind of my basis for the dry. And I'm going to look at my recipe because normally I'm just kind of doing this, but I want to make sure that I put down, I'm using what I say on my recipe here. So if you see me looking at that, that's why. Normally I just kind of all whip it together. So we have a cup of the flour, and I'm just going to use this flour this time. I'm not like super particular about measuring in a really particular way. I'm just scooping some in my measuring cup here and making it about a cup. So that's the way I do it. So I'm going to put a cup in each one. Now, a lot of times I put nuts in them. You don't have to put nuts in them, and we'll talk about that later, but I like to put some nuts in them for a source of protein. Bob really likes to have them for breakfast. He'll have 2 muffins for breakfast, so that's why I like to put the nuts in there. Okay, so we've got a cup of that. Get that out of the way. And then we do a half a cup of oat bran. And I don't think I have enough, but we'll check and see here to do an actual half a cup with each one. I think I might just kind of measure how much I have here, then I can, no, okay, so it looks like I've got about a cup. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to supplement with a little bit more oatmeal in this ration. But if you were going by the recipe, you would just use a half a cup of oat bran. And we'll just do like this, and then I'll add a little bit more oatmeal for that measurement. I switch these around a lot of different ways, but basically use that same recipe. And we'll do the same with this. So the oat bran, yeah, has some really nice fiber in it. It kind of gives it a real hearty consistency. Okay, so now I've got those dry ingredients in there. Let's see, am I missing anything? The oatmeal. And let's see, how much oatmeal do I add? A cup of oatmeal. And there again, I'm kind of, you know, if you try these and you feel like you need more of something, then you just make it according to your needs. But this is what works out for me. So put a cup in each of these. Whoops, spill there. Okay, and then I'm going to add just a little bit more on that one. There we go. I'll get that out of the way. All right, I'm going to add my salt and soda and baking powder with the dry ingredients as well. So it's a half a teaspoon of salt. I like to use this real salt. It's a really nice, good mineral, real salt. Okay, there's the salt. And then it is a half a teaspoon of baking powder. I need to make sure on that. Okay. I like to make sure I use an aluminum-free baking soda. You normally have a different brand, but this was the one that I could find the last time I was shopping. So we're going to do a half a teaspoon of the powder. Okay, and then it has 2 teaspoons of soda, which you might think that that's a lot, that it might taste kind of soda-y, but it does not. It does not taste too much soda. So that's what I use. Okay, I gotta pay attention. All right, so we're gonna mix those guys up in there. Break up any clumps of the soda or powder. So what I do is I make 3 dozen, or I don't always make 3 dozen at a time, but I'll at least make 2 dozen, and then I freeze a lot of them, and just take out you know, probably like 8 at a time that I leave in the refrigerator to keep them fresh. Now that would depend upon how fast you eat them and your family size and all that too. My family really likes these, and I like to give them as gifts, so I'll make, like at Christmas, I'll make a variety of them and give everybody a variety pack. Just making sure I get all the soda balls broke up in there. Okay, so those are my dry ingredients, and I'm just gonna set those aside for a moment. And then I'll have a container for each of the wet ingredients, so that's what we're gonna do next. So it's 2 eggs, and I already put my pumpkin in here. I had to thaw it out. This is a 1.5 cups of pumpkin, and I have to get my applesauce. Okay, this is a 1.5 cups of pumpkin, and I actually used some pumpkin that I had frozen from my garden. So it was in a container, and I took it out and thawed it out, so I already put that in here, but it's 1.5 cups. And then I've got applesauce, and this is actually from apples from my apple tree. And I use 1.5 cups of that. And what I normally do is when I'm making this, I freeze a bunch of containers that are 1.5 cups. And I freeze my pumpkin in 1.5 cups. And that way I make the muffins quite often. So that way I can just have it all pre-measured and put it in there. But just to make sure, I'm going to measure this and see if it's about 1.5 cups. Okay, this is a little bit more. So I'm going to put 1.5 cups in there, and I'm going to actually put this other little bit in with my bananas because they're a little bit more thicker. So we'll just add that in with them. Okay, and then I've got the bananas. Now, I have a couple of bananas, the nice overripe bananas that I had saved and I put in the freezer. So I'm going to put these in here. I don't normally measure my bananas. I usually just use like 2 or 3 bananas, but I'll measure them just to see, for curiosity, what we're doing here. So there's 1. 2. So I think I'm about right here. I've got another banana. I don't always have frozen or saved over ripened bananas. I just use regular bananas as well, and they taste just fine. They're plenty ripe enough that it gives a good flavor. So I'm going to add this banana as well. Okay, so that's going to be about, I would say that's going to be about 1.5 cups. And I've got just that little bit of applesauce in there as well. Okay, so now we're going to mix those up, and then we're going to add the other stuff in there. And you don't have to worry about getting the bananas totally, like if you wanted to blend it with a mixer, you could. I don't normally do that. I just kind of wire whip it or use a fork and break it up, and it turns out fine. So, but if you really want to have it creamy and smooth before you're adding other ingredients and you want to use your mixer, that's just fine. All right, so there we've got our base. Now, I've also made these with some peanut butter, and I haven't made them for a long time, so I'm trying to remember what else I put with the peanut butter because that's pretty thick. But that's just another option. You could even add some peanut butter with your banana, and that would probably be a good thing too. One other thing that I've made it with is zucchini, and zucchini from my garden, and so that works out really good too. But zucchini's a little bit bland, and so I added some honey with the zucchini when I made that. So that's another thing, if you want to use up your zucchini and you want to experiment with that, you can do that too. All right, so there we got banana, applesauce, pumpkin, and we're going to add our eggs. So it's 2 eggs each. And I'm just looking because I want to make sure I'm telling you what's on the recipe, not just what I do in my head. 2 eggs, yep. These are eggs from my chickies, so that's kind of makes me feel proud to have my chickens laying eggs. Just got my chickens last spring, and they have been just laying eggs wonderfully, even in the winter, probably because they're young chickens, but I'm still getting, I've got 10 chickens, and I'm still getting, 5 or 6 a day right now. This is beginning of February. Slowed down a little bit. I had a few days where I only got 3 when it was really cold, but they've been pretty consistent though. Now, before the fall came, I was getting 8 a lot of days. I haven't gotten any blue ones lately. I have 2 chickens that lay blue eggs, and I haven't gotten any of those since we had that cold spell a couple weeks ago. Hopefully they'll start laying again pretty soon. All right, gonna get my little eggs mixed up in here. Actually, I think I'm gonna add what else I need to add, and then I can rinse my little mixer here out before I move on to the next one. So the other wet ingredients are 1/4 cup of oil and 1/2 cup of water. And just if you start making these, you might want to just notice, like, maybe I don't want that much water, maybe I want a little bit less water, but this is what works for me, so that's what I use. So 1/4 cup of oil, and I've got a 1/2 cup measuring cup, so I'm just going to use half of this. And I'm using avocado oil. Use olive oil, just, you know, some kind of healthy oil. All right, so there's my oil in there, and I'll save this out to put in my muffin tins. And then we got the 1/2 cup of water. I know a lot of people would be using the other type of measuring cup, but you know what? I just use the same thing and everything turns out just fine, so. Okay, now we're gonna mix up the rest of the wet ingredients. It's okay if there's some banana lumps in there. They'll cook and they'll be just fine. And just rinse this out a little bit. Applesauce. So if I grow pumpkins, what I do is I just, in the fall, I'll just scrub them up, and then I like cut them in half and cook them, and then scoop the nice pulpy stuff out, and then I can use a blender and just, or a mixer, and just mix it and get it a nice smooth consistency, and then I'll freeze it in like 1.5 cup portions. Okay, there we go with that. All right, so we got those things done. Now what we'll do is I'll put one in with each dry ingredient. And before I do that, I kind of think about what else I want to put in the dry ingredients. So this is banana. Make sure. Yep, that's banana, applesauce kind of looks the same. Banana, applesauce, pumpkin. So then I'll think about, okay, what do I want to put with banana, applesauce, and pumpkin? Obviously the blueberries go good with the applesauce and banana, but I never measure how many blueberries I put in there, but I'll measure right now just to give an idea. But that's kind of a, you know, something that's a personalized thing of how much. The only thing I can say is you don't want to put total excessive amount in there, because if there's too many blueberries, then the muffins kind of fall apart. So I had a 1/2 cup in there. I'm gonna put a little bit more. So that's about, I'm gonna say about 1 cup of blueberries in there. Okay, and then in the applesauce one, well, I'm gonna do the pumpkin one first. So the pumpkin one, I usually put raisins in. I have some dates left over, and I think I might use up some of these dates, so we'll see how much the dates cover, and then I'll decide if I'm gonna put any raisins in there. So we will just kind of cut these guys up a little bit. Okay, let's see how much that makes. Okay, that makes not quite a cup. I'll just throw in a few raisins with that, and we'll be good to go. All right, and then in the applesauce, I'm gonna add some apples actually, and some raisins. So these are some apples left over from our apple tree. So I just take the skin off and cut some up. And a lot of times I'll put the apples in with the pumpkin. Okay, Okay. So there is our apples, and then I'm going to add a little bit of raisin to that. So we'll see how much apple that is. Okay, not yet 2 cups, so I'm going to add a little bit of raisin to that. I'm going to put a 1/2 cup of raisins in there. Okay, so then we'll get these guys stirred up, and then we're going to put some nuts in. Like I said, I don't always put nuts in. If I put nuts in, I usually put walnuts in or pecans in. And this is some walnuts. So I'm going to put some nuts into the pumpkin and the applesauce one. And most of the time, I don't really measure that either. I just kind of break them up, but I'm going to put it in a measuring cup here so I can see how much I'm putting in. And these are raw walnuts. All right, so here's a 1/2 cup in here. I think I'll do a little bit more. All right, so here's a little bit more nuts for in there. I'm going to put about 3/4 of a cup in there. And then I'm going to put some in with the pumpkin batch. If I was making zucchini, I would put some in with the zucchini. Of course, unless you don't eat nuts. These muffins freeze up very nicely. So you can either put them in, you know, a storage container or in a baggie and zip baggie. All right, we're gonna put the rest of these nuts in here. And now we've got all of our dry ingredients ready, our wet ingredients ready. I'm gonna put my recipe up here so I don't get it wet. We'll mix everything together and put them in the pans. I like to use these ceramic muffin pans. You can also use muffin paper in there as well, like muffin parchment paper. But I have found that this works out just fine, just by oiling a little bit. And I'll just take a napkin and disperse it in there. If I have excess, I just scoop it out with a napkin and you know, disperse it with the other ones. All right, got my oil in the pans, and now the fun part, where we get to mix them together and put them in the pans. So here goes pumpkin. And it is just very pumpkin-y looking, and you know, they look really pretty with all the raisins, and this has got the dates in there and everything, the yellow color. Oh, I did not add cinnamon. The reason I don't add cinnamon is because my husband's allergic to cinnamon, but that would be really good with both the applesauce and the pumpkin ones, is to add some cinnamon. Or if you like nutmeg, you could add some nutmeg as well. Zucchini, also, I would add the cinnamon with the zucchini. All right, so all I do is I just mix it until there isn't any wet ingredient or any dry ingredients that are poking through when I fold it over. And then I'm just going to get it in the pans. Now these all have a little bit different consistency. This one is a little bit thicker than the applesauce one, but they all cook up, you know, very nicely. Some of them might just rise a little bit higher or be a little bit fluffy or whatever. So here is pumpkin, date, and raisin before. And I'm gonna pop that in the oven. I can only fit 2 in there. Oh, I might be able to fit 3. I think I fit 3 last time. We'll see what I can do here. I think I figured out a way to do that because the pans are just a little bit big to fit on a shelf, but I think I was able to overlap it a little bit without it hitting the muffin. All right, before cooking, applesauce, muffins. All right, I was able to fit them both in the top drawer, so I can put these on the bottom now. Once I get these in the pan, in the muffin tins, if I see there's a slot that doesn't have blueberries, like I'm at the end of the thing here, and there's a lot of batter without blueberry, and if I'm noticing one of the tins doesn't, then I'll just plunk a couple blueberries in there to add some more. But it's working out pretty good here. Okay, so they are popped in the oven. I'm going to cook them at 350 degrees for it's about 20 to 25 minutes, but I always set it for 20 minutes. And then I'll look at them along the way, you know, look at them about 18 minutes, see how they're doing. Just, you know, poke on the top a little bit and make sure they don't smush down and they're slightly brown. And that's how I kind of call it good. So we're going to let them cook and then we'll look at what they look like afterwards. They always seem to turn out good. So you can experiment all over the place with them and see what you want to add. But they're a good, healthy base muffin recipe that you don't have to feel guilty about eating because there isn't any sugar in them. And I can tell you that even without sugar in them, they taste very tasty. I've never had anybody say, I don't like them because they don't have sugar in them, because the fruit gives them all the sugars that they need in there. So very, very healthy muffin recipe. Okay, we're gonna let them bake and then we'll see what they look like when we take them out. Okay, these delicious muffins are done. So we've got apple. And this is the one that I ended up putting the blueberries in. You can see that. We've got banana. And that's got some fruit in that one as well. Apples, raisins. We've got pumpkin. We could put the dates in. So they are done. They took about 20 to 22 minutes. The pumpkin ones take a little bit longer. They're just a little bit denser, so those took a little bit longer. But the way that I check them is I just put my finger on them, and you just want it to kind of pop up. And I'll show a close-up of that. So when I check them in the oven, I just slightly go like this, and you just want them to kind of pop back at you again. And once they do that, the denser ones are going to be a little bit denser, but then you know they're not done. They're done and they're not doughy on the inside. And I just wanted to add that when I said applesauce, I used applesauce from the apples of our garden. And when I make my applesauce from the garden, I don't put any sugar in it. I'm just using my apples. I just cut them up and cook them up. And sometimes I'll put a little bit of lemon in there. And sometimes I don't. Sometimes I've even put a little bit of cut up oranges in there. This was either lemon or plain, and I can't tell you what it was because sometimes I make it both ways, but the lemon does help to preserve it a little bit. So usually I do squirt some lemon in there, just some fresh lemons, and squirt it in there. So, but it doesn't have any sugar in it. So if you're using like a store-bought applesauce, you'll just want to make sure that you use like a sugar-free applesauce. So I'm just gonna let these guys set in their pan until they're cool, and then they'll come out of their pan really nicely. They're a little sticky when they're hot, so we just let them set, and then I'll just be putting them into some containers like this, and I'll keep a container out in the refrigerator and put the rest in the freezer, and that'll be it. So they're really easy to make, very simple recipe. And I will add the recipe either in a picture or in description or somewhere in here if you want to use that. And then you can just alter it as you like. But just a good healthy snack or a good healthy breakfast. So thanks for watching. Have a great day and enjoy your healthy muffins.